So one of my clients had been losing organic search traffic for months consistently, and I chose not to do anything about it. Not out of negligence, but rather because the data pointed in that direction. Here's the exact framework that I used to create this diagnosis. Number one, start with first-party data and traffic trends. This was the kind of site where a sharp month-over-month decline would look alarming. This company had a strong backlink profile, a huge content library, and a well-established brand in the space. But still, instead of assuming the worst, I kept digging. Step 2 was distinguishing branded versus non-branded search demand. If branded traffic was down, it could simply be seasonality. But if non-branded traffic was declining, which in this case was true, we would investigate rankings and content quality. But here's the interesting part. In this case, none of the two patterns were noticed, which means there was something else going on. So I moved into the next step, which was step 3, identify which pages are losing traffic. So I pulled all of the negatively impacted URLs into a spreadsheet, started checking for ranking changes, SERP changes, and content quality, which of course meant a couple of different things. Again, it was confusing because everything still looked strong. Top ranking positions were still intact, the content was still best in class, and there were no obvious signals pointing to an internal issue. So I moved on to the next one. Step 4, competitor trend analysis. So I mapped the top pages contributing to the traffic loss, checked their primary keywords, and pulled the competing pages into Ahrefs. And this is where I found something interesting. Almost every competitor showed the same downward curve, which meant whatever was happening in the space was happening to everyone, not just isolated to our client specifically. That is where the most logical step, next one, was going to be step 5, analyzing search demand. And this is where the real answer surfaced. This is where I made the breakthrough. The search volumes for many of these non-branded keyword categories, most of these topic clusters, was dropping across the board. So for context, this company was a consent management tool in the SaaS space, and most of their content was related to cookies. And at that time, the cookies trend overall as a topic was shrinking, which meant this was more of a search demand problem in the space as a whole rather than the performance of this client in isolation. And lastly, that moved us to the final stage, step 6, make the logical decision based on the data at hand. So the action plan was simple, do nothing. Why? Because no amount of content updates or optimization will reverse a market level decline. So here's the takeaway for you from this case. Traffic drops will tempt you into blaming seasonality or Google ranking updates or maybe content decay. But sometimes the answer can be pretty quiet. You might be noticing shifts in search behavior. Search demand might be going down. And your job as a strategist is to respond rationally rather than reacting emotionally, which in this case meant just sitting back, letting those pages die while we create content for other additional topics which are on the rise.